in my opinion, at this moment, it is the game changer. It is the most important thing you could possibly do for your mind and body.
What is up, everybody? And welcome back to the Schooling Struggle Podcast. It is our belief that the only guarantee in life is that we are all going to struggle, and how we choose to embrace our struggles is what empowers us to become the best versions of ourselves. How's it going? My name is Pete, coming to you from Vermont, and with me are two of my friends, Todd Ellis and Dr. William Slammin. What's up, gentlemen?
What's up, Peter? That's a very formal introduction.
Wasn't it?
Seriously.
Sorry, Dr. Bill.
I figured by the third time on the podcast, we'd be like at least first name basis. We'd be more chill.
With the doctor in front of it, I give so much respect. It's so cool.
I appreciate that.
So cool. Yeah. Now, I am thrilled for the lineup or the format for tonight's podcast. I was just telling my wife about it before I came down, how excited I am for this. So to set the stage for tonight's conversation, one of the really cool things about being a podcast host is people I know reach out to me and say, hey, check out this podcast. Based on what you guys share on yours, I think you might like it. So I get links of various podcasts sent to me quite frequently throughout the week. One of my friends reached out with one episode from the Freakonomics podcast featuring a guest by the name of Kevin Kelly. And apparently this guy writes some what he calls life advice, and it is just really, really well received by the people that follow him, and he's become quite well known for his life advice. And he explains the word advice like hats. People can give you a bunch of hats and you try the ones on, and the ones that you like, you keep and you wear them, and the ones that you don't use. And I thought that was kind of cool. He wasn't too serious about his life advice. And he said, actually, what he does isn't necessarily advice. It's, these are some things that work for me. Maybe they'll work for you. And I thought that, that would be a really cool way for us to host an episode. And if we bring Dr. Bill on, I think we'll learn so much about different life advice from the good Dr. Bill. And when it comes to this type of content, I just love what flows out of Todd's brain. So I'm really, really excited to hear what the two of you have to share. So the way we line this up tonight is each of us have come to the episode equipped with 3 pieces of not life advice, but things that work for us that may or may not work for you. And I think it's a really fun conversation to get into. So I'm going to ask Dr. Bill to lead us off tonight with his first piece of life advice. What's working for you these days, Dr. Bill?
Thank you, Peter. And it's a little intimidating to go first. So I hope I set the bar either high or low, whatever will make the podcast the best it can be. So I was a little surprised at how hard it was for me to actually, it wasn't just narrow it down, but to come up with things that actually seemed like they might be worth sharing. But then a few things occurred to me, and the number one thing, not number one, but my thing I'm going to start with is a piece of advice that I developed in my private practice. And it was, I'm a child and family psychologist. And so most of the work I do is support. I work with children and families and parents often. And years and years ago, I found myself, I referred to it as a law, like not just a rule or a suggestion, but that this was like a law that parents needed to follow. And I think it could be applicable beyond parenting. And it is this. The specific advice to parents is do not parent from guilt. Do not parent from guilt. You can regret what you've done when you make mistakes, but if you find yourself about to parent, meaning intervene with your child in some fashion, and you're doing it because you feel guilty, what I used to tell parents is you need to stop and at least do nothing, and at most rethink what the better response would be. Because I would say to parents, you will always do the wrong thing if you respond from guilt. And as I thought about this today, I think it can be more generalized to life in general. I'm not saying you should never feel guilty. What I used to tell parents is feel guilty on your own time, in private. That's you. You need to deal with that. But when you're parenting, or when you're in a relationship with somebody, or when you are the boss or whatever, I advise, do not intervene or engage with your other person from a point of guilt. What do you think?
So it's got me, you've asked me what I think. I'm thinking a lot. It's got me thinking, which is the beauty of what you shared. Would you be able to give an example?
Yeah, sure. You're in the grocery store and your 2, 3, 4-year-old is throwing a fit, or 7-year-old, or 12-year-old, or 18-year-old is throwing a fit because they want you to buy them something. And you know the right answer is to say, no, I'm not going to buy this thing for you because you're throwing a fit. This isn't how you get what you want. But for some reason, maybe you lost your patience earlier in the day, or you lost your temper early in the day and you yelled at their child or something. And so then all of a sudden you start feeling guilty, or you feel guilty because, oh, like this could be harmful if I say no. And so you give in. And in fact, that's the wrong thing to do. You've just reinforced behavior that you do not want to see again. Instead of kind of holding your ground, holding the line, doing the correct thing, and by correct, I don't mean like objectively right and wrong. I mean, for long-term results with your child, it is better to either do nothing and just say, sorry, we got to go, get out of the store as fast as you can, just bail. I've done that before. Or you hold your ground and you say, no, I am not going to buy you this thing because that behavior is unacceptable, not just in public, but anywhere. And I'm going to pay for the groceries and we're leaving. Boom, done. Again, we feel guilty about things we do naturally. The advice is do not respond from guilt. Deal with your guilt at another time when you have to make a response to somebody. But in your response, try to respond from your place of wisdom, like from the place that you know is a better way to respond to that particular thing. Does that make sense? Whether you agree or disagree, does it make any sense?
It does. I certainly do not disagree. Yeah, I love it. I love it. And Todd and I often talk about the difference between reacting and responding. And I noticed the word you used there was respond.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
And let me just say this quickly. When we respond from guilt, maybe this isn't the best way to put it, but it's kind of a compromised position. We're not coming from strength. Yeah. We're coming from weakness, and we're going to do something that helps us feel better rather than it be what is best for the other person. And my experience is that right. if you deal with your guilt, you deal with those feelings at another time. But if you can respond from a place of maybe regret but wisdom, then you're going to have a better outcome. You're going to have a better response.
My man Todd with a big beard, T Scruffy.
He's got his glasses on tonight. He's serious.
Yeah, he's feeling good.
What a pleasure to be with both of you. Thank you. When I was listening to you talk about guilt, the first question I had was, is it my guilt or is it situational guilt or is it any guilt? So in the supermarket, you said, I'm feeling guilty because maybe something happened earlier at work and I blew up on somebody. Now I feel guilty and I'll let you have the thing you want because I'm dealing with my own guilt. But then my mind wandered to, well, what happens if I've been holding guilt about parenting for the last 20 years of my own life, and now this is showing up in this moment? Are those different, or is it kind of a blanket statement? Stay away from guilt if you're going to have any interaction, if you can.
It's not that, like, we all have guilt for all different reasons, and it's important to process it and deal with it. One of the things over the years I've learned is to try to reframe my guilt, quote unquote, my guilt, into regret. If it has a different, regret is like I'm taking responsibility for what I did and I'm making a commitment not to do it again. Guilt is, poor me. I did this terrible thing. I'm a terrible person. Kind of. That's the way I think about it.
Okay.
And I think in a kind of blanket way, when we respond to others from guilt, we're going to do something that helps us feel better in the immediate moment. And in my experience, almost always makes the situation worse. Ultimately,
it keeps coming back to that theme of what we want now versus what we want most, right? What we want now is just to find that feeling of comfort in the moment to get through the moment. But what we want most is not move the relationship or the progress of the person that we're interacting with or ourselves forward.
It's a good one. Bill Slamman, law number 1, no guilt.
No, do not respond from guilt.
I like it.
I'm so excited to hear Todd's first piece of life advice.
It my turn?
You're up.
What's going to be funny is I can already tell a lot of these are going to have intersections. because
Yeah.
what I was thinking about it. So to be clear, just to totally divulge my level of homework preparedness, I went and worked out, and then I sat in my car for 15 minutes when I got home in the driveway, and I thought, oh, maybe I should listen to this other podcast. And then I thought, I don't want to listen to that podcast because it's going to put a bunch of thoughts in my head about maybe what Peter wants to hear. And then, so I turned it off because I did start it, and then I turned it off, and I thought, if I had 3 or 4 things that may or may not work for me that I wanted to maybe re-impress or bring up, and I started writing them down. And usually I don't write them down, so this time it might seem a little better. So I flowed my thoughts out, but I think that they'll be okay. So it's not a law, but it's more of a recent awareness, and I think one that I wish I would have at least seen the flicker of at a point long ago in my path. But it's self-talk. And I noted here to cultivate a channel to hear oneself without judgment and constantly seek to understand how others do the same in their own darkness. That's what I wrote. And so I think it's I've recently read this book. It's called Chatter. I can't remember who wrote it, but it's been pretty profound in its impact the first time I listened to it, and I'm going to listen to it again because there's so many little nuggets in there. But they came up with all these great examples of how you can create little gaps in awareness by listening to the way you talk to yourself, and then like having the wherewithal to do something about it. One of the most interesting parts, and I think it accurately kind of sums it up, is and I don't follow football, or not football, but basketball, but apparently LeBron James was playing for some team and he was going to go to some other place, and everybody was like, oh, how's he going to do it? Will he do it? Blah, blah, blah. And there was an interview with him in it, and he said something along the lines of, it was a very difficult decision to make for whatever reasons it was. And then he paused and said, LeBron James is going to do what's good for LeBron James. And the point was, if you put yourself into the third person, and if you use like this specific wording, Todd's going to do this because it's good for Todd, or, it's good for me, or whatever. It creates this space of awareness where before you weren't really listening to it, you were just tied up in your head. And so I've been thinking about that a lot lately, but I think if you were able to hold it, to realize the way you talk to yourself, and then have enough of tools, or enough time, or enough space, whatever you want to call it, to tear that apart and look at what that sounds like to other people, I think that there's a lot of merit in that. So that's my number one.
I love that, Todd.
Me too. And especially the non-judgmental part.
That's the hardest part.
Yeah, yeah.
You're talking to yourself, you're probably beating yourself up in your head. And I always thought to myself, well, I'm never getting down on myself like, oh, you're so stupid. Like, I never say that to myself, but I just say more cutting things in other ways that I never really realized that I was saying. So, yeah. I'm sorry I cut you off, Bill. What were you saying?
The idea that you mentioned, the non-judgmental listening, and whether it's a full, loud inner critic or not, I can see where there'd be so much power in just listening non-judgmentally to the stream of consciousness, like the thoughts that are running through your head. And if you can take a step back, almost like that third person example you gave with LeBron James, and look for patterns and look for little threads that are running through there, some of which might be really helpful to you and some of which might be kind of holding you back. And that's awesome, especially because I was expecting you to say something like, that self-talk, and to make it positive, and to be, proactive and all that kind of stuff. And I think there really is value to just stream of consciousness, attend to our mind, and see what we find. Because in fact, almost none of us do that.
And it's always talking. The
Yeah.
record is always playing.
Always
just,
playing.
You want to tune in.
And we don't like to tune in because we're afraid of what we're going to hear, but it's worth tuning in once in a while.
True that. Peter, what do you got?
I feel that's a real strength of Todd, is his ability to tune in. And I admire that a lot about you, Todd. And I've learned a tremendous amount about you in 49 episodes of having conversations with you. It's really cool.
Thank you.
So my first one is, it's really actually interesting because I proposed this idea to you all. I marked this down as one of my 3. And then very shortly after I decided this was going to be one of my 3, I was reading a book called The 4 Agreements by a guy named Don Miguel Ruiz.
That's a good one.
And I think it's a great book. One of my friends who went to prison told me, hey, make sure you read this book. And I'm glad he did. And the premise of the book is kind of the 4 agreements you make with yourself to be the best version of yourself. And one of the 4 agreements is don't take anything personally. And this was, like I said, one that I'd already chosen before I read the book, and then to see it in writing as one of his 4 agreements, I thought was really interesting. And as a teacher, this is a really good one for me to remember on a daily basis. And the really fascinating thing about this is I decided I was going to have this be one of my 3 to share tonight. Then a couple days later, I read it in a book, and then 3 days ago, I had an interaction with someone who was just over the top rude to me, and I hadn't been disrespected like that in a very long time. And it was such a stark reminder of a great opportunity to remind myself of this tenet of not to take things personally. So in the book, he says that nothing other people do is because of you. It is because of themselves. All people live in their own dream, in their own mind. They are in a completely different world than the one that you live in. When we take something personally, we make the assumption that they know what is in our world, and we try to impose our world on their world. And I just think every time we interact with someone, it's important to remember the way that they're treating us, interacting with us, communicating with us is a result of their thoughts, feelings, emotions, and life experiences. And we'll never know what that is. And this interaction with somebody who was really rude to me a couple of days ago, when I stepped back and looked at the situation, I actually think the honest mistake that I made, that person did see what I did as 10 times worse of what I saw them do to me. And I didn't realize what I'd done until it was too late. And it was just an honest mistake on my end. And the way they handled it really shocked me. And it's really interesting to think about if somebody says something negative to you or about you, to strive hard not to take that personally. But on the flip side, if somebody says something really kind or positive to you or about you, you have to take it with the same grain of salt that you do the negative stuff if you're going to be honest with yourself. And if somebody says something great about me or to me, that's the exact same thing as they're just speaking through their thoughts, emotions, and life experiences as someone who says something negative. And it's really easy to kind of shrug off the negativity that comes toward us. Well, it's easy to think about the result of shrugging off and then taking to heart everything that somebody says that's kind to us. But we kind of need to treat the two the same, because we can't put a lot of stock into what other people say and think about us. Even the people that we feel should know us the best. And it's a really good reminder for me to be comfortable in my own skin, to know who I am, and to not let the statements, thoughts, and actions of other people hinder or change the way that I see myself. And I once heard someone say, what other people think about me is none of my business. And I really like that.
The other meme related to that, and I don't think I'm going to say it exactly right, but it's something like, what people think or say to you or about you is not about how you are, it's about how they are.
100%. Yeah. And he goes deep into that in that book, in the book that I was referring to, Dr. Slama, but that is exactly what you just said, is like the premise of that entire statement is don't take anything personally.
It's
so good.
I love that, Peter, and it's super hard for most of us to do. It's
very hard for me.
Oh,
I'm a
my
people
God.
pleaser. It's really hard for me.
Yeah. So good. One of the things I try to do with that, I try to not take things personally, but I also try not to discount what people might say to me that I find uncomfortable, or the point you made, even when people are complimenting me or being kind to me, to not exaggerate it or to overblow it. I try to listen for whatever grain of truth might be in whatever they say, right? So if somebody comes at me hot and angry and whatever, or critical, I try not to take it personally, but I try to listen. Is there anything in there I could learn from? Maybe is there any validity in what they're saying? I mean, they might be really exaggerating their response, or I may feel like their feelings are way too big for the situation, but is there anything I can take away from this that can be helpful? I love that. That's a great life hack.
Yeah. I truly believe that we can learn something from every single human with whom we interact, whether it's just passing someone on the street or a lifelong relationship. And so it's not to say that I'm not looking for lessons. And man, I learned a big lesson 3 days ago when I stepped back and looked at how I handled the situation when that person was, in my opinion, rude to me. So yes, I agree with that. That's awesome. All right, Dr. Slam, what do you got for your number 2?
Take risks. Take risks.
That's a good one.
And to clarify, I'm not talking about like base jumping off of skyscrapers. My personal example is I was 21 years old. I somehow got accepted into this graduate school out in California. I was this very kind of sheltered, naive kid, grew up in a blue-collar family in Buffalo, New York. And the idea of driving, so I drove to California with $500 in my pocket and no place to live. And that was like, I'm surprised that I survived with the level of stress and anxiety I was experiencing. I kind of knew I had to take that risk if I was going to move forward in my life, but that was it was crazy. But that was like the beginning of a sequence throughout my life where I learned, if it feels risky, sometimes you just got to go for it. And I always had a plan B, which just made me feel better. I wouldn't have wanted to do plan B. So take risks. That's my advice. Go for it.
I went through a phase in my life a couple of years ago where I became really fascinated to learn about what the best in every field was doing and what separate them. What is the best swimmer in the world doing? What's the best pianist in the world doing? What's the best business person in the world doing? And I found myself reading a bunch of different books and listening to a bunch of different things. And I found what I learned amongst all those people was two themes. And one was some form of structure and routine, and the other was the willingness to take risks. And it was at that time, after working at my former school for 12 years, that I absolutely loved the opportunity to teach at the high school presented itself. And I was truly 98% fulfilled. And to roll the dice and risk to try to get another 2%, it is pretty risky. I had it all. I worked 5 minutes from my house, 2 miles from my house, with my wife. My daughter was about to start school there. I had amazing friendships. I had the support of the school, everything. And I left it to teach at high school, and it has been one of the most rewarding decisions I've ever made. And the timing of taking that risk to give up something that I love for the unknown was risky. But if I was at 98% of my former location, I'm at 298% now. And that's an awesome one. I love it.
Yeah, that's good. I don't think I've ever had a risk that I've taken that didn't benefit me in some way. If I like really think back, well, I mean, there's probably a few that were not the best decisions I've ever made, but still I learned something from the risk. So it's like what you take away from it, I think. But yeah, I like it.
I think there's been research done with people who are on their deathbeds, and when they ask them about what their biggest regrets are in life, it's never the things that they did do that did not work out. It's always the things that they did not do that they wish they'd done.
Yeah.
Who's T. Scruffy?
T. Scruff. I have a bonus one, which is funny because usually I don't even do my homework in that, and this time I have an extra answer. Okay, I'm going to stay away from the simple one because that was pretty simple. Well, sounds simple, but not so much. This one came at me at a strange moment. It goes along the lines of don't assert without tasting the dirt. And to me, what that means is it's along the lines of do not loudly complain unless you have or are willing to explore with others potential solutions or methods of change. Because everybody can complain about something. They could do it loud, they could do it quiet, they could even do it in their own head with their self-talk. But when it comes down to it, you're wasting so much energy even just thinking about that, let alone, spending the energy to push that out into the world without something that could be beneficial or a positive that could come from it. So that's my number 2.
Yeah, I love that. I recently heard, and I'm pretty certain I agree with it, not 100%, but I think I am, is that all decisions and actions that humans make and take boils down to two things, survival and procreation. And there's a reason why negativity exists, and the negative thoughts have kept us alive over the years, right? So if we picture the threat, we get into our fight or flight and we protect ourselves, either by leading the situation or, defending ourselves. So you hear a lot about, we need to do away with the negativity. We need to do away with the negativity. But there's a reason why it's been part of our mindset for so long. And I think that could be the reason why. But when we complain, we are bringing negativity into our world. And that's energy that we're spending on focus on the negative versus spending energy on the solution or the proactive approach. And that's what I'm hearing you say, is that take that energy that we're spending on the whining or the complaining and instead invest that energy into something that could be more problem solving or solution based. Am I hearing you right?
Yeah. It goes along the lines of, and I've probably said this before, but there's I heard a quote one time, and it was instead of spending time on the things you dislike, spend them on the things you do or you do like, right? So there's zero, you get nothing fruitful out of just ruminating on, complete garbage all the time. And if if you're able to see the positivity in the things that you do like, they will draw you towards something greater instead of wallowing or languishing in that negativity. It's been my finding.
I often tell my students if something negative happens and then we have a negative response or reaction, now we have two negative things. Right. One negative thing is enough. Let's just keep it at one. It's really easy to say and really hard to do.
Yeah, agree.
So the other day I was walking past the school library and there was a box out with a free sign that had some books in it. And I just take a look through. And when I do that, I usually look for a cover that has New York Times bestseller on the cover. And oftentimes books fall under that guise. And I found a book called Shadow Divers. And I just decided to start reading it. And prior to reading this book, I knew absolutely nothing about deep water scuba diving. And what I learned is there's a difference between recreational divers and deep water divers. And it's a very different lifestyle and approach toward exploring the ocean. And with that, in the book, they were also seeking new shipwrecks to dive. And they were trying to find ones that had not been discovered and to try to locate and explore these new ships. And this particular book was about a German U-boat that they'd found. All this to say, I think for me, it's really important that I remind myself to every now and again do a deep dive, no pun intended, into subcultures that I know nothing about. It's really easy to get caught up and trapped in the same few things that we have a high level of interest in, and to go really deep on those. And I certainly have those, but to go completely off the rails or off the reservation and learn about something that I otherwise would know nothing about is really exciting. And the YouTube rabbit hole is a good way to do that too, because you'll be watching a video about one thing, and then half an hour later, 6 videos later, you're watching something that has nothing to do with that first video you're watching, and something completely different. And I think that that's kind of fun to do sometimes. So mine is every now and again perform a deep dive into a subculture that you know nothing about.
It's fair. It's a good book.
I'm impressed that you read it. Yeah.
Wait till the end. You're really going to enjoy it.
I finished it.
Oh,
I finished it. Yeah.
It was touch and go there for a few minutes, wasn't it?
These two guys were so obsessed about being able to name this U-boat that they found and found out what number or which ship it was that they basically both lost their marriages, and they were so consumed with this this goal of theirs to locate or name the ship. It was a lot more than just the diving aspects, but I just learned so much. It was really fascinating.
I like that one.
That's good. Good job.
All right, final time around.
So I'm in a little bit of a dilemma here, because as we've been thinking, talking and chatting, and I have two to finish, but I have to decide. I have to choose one. Those are the rules.
It sounded like Todd had a bonus too, so we could be going over anyway. So
I'm going to go with this one. It's also fairly simple, but not easy. I think that's maybe the theme. Is some of these things are simple, like in a concept, but they're not easy to do. And this is another one, Peter. You mentioned about you read about what do successful people do. And I had read the similar kinds of things, and it turns out that one of the things successful people do that I, for most of my life, have not done is they say no. People are constantly asking successful people to do stuff. Will you take on this project? Will you read this book? Will you edit, whatever, just constant demands. And part of being effective and efficient in getting stuff done and getting seeing projects, having a vision and seeing projects to the end, is you have to say no to like 90% of stuff, right? So in the last few years, this has been a very powerful thing for me, because in part of my job, I can't say no to very much, but I've become really mindful of when I can say no. And I've been choosing more and more in the last year, I'd say year and a half, to just be like, no, thank you. I really appreciate you thought about me for that. I'm not able to do that right now. And I've done it a number of occasions, and I have a tell. Like when somebody asks something of me, there's this like it could probably be, if I was like under an MRI, you could probably see the level of angst and anxiety just like rising in my stomach and chest. It was just this visceral And that's what I finally learned. Oh, I should pay attention to that feeling. So when somebody asks me and my guts immediately go into a knot, that's something I should say no to, because that's telling me I'm already overextended. And if I take on one more thing, I'm not going to be able to really focus on what's important to me now or what the priorities are for me now. So I think for me, that's been it's taken me decades to learn that life kind of rule or strategy. And I'm liking it. I'm really liking there's power in saying no to things sometimes.
I heard someone say recently, it's not important to me that everybody likes me, but it's important to me that everybody respects me. And then he went on to say, because there are absolutely people in this world that I don't like that I respect. And when I made that decision to start saying no to stuff, and it actually coincides with the conversation I shared, when I switched schools, I made an effort to say no to pretty much everything my first year so I could really focus on the main reason why I was there. Because in schools, there's lots of roles that need to be filled outside of the contract that really need to be filled to make the ship sail. And I decided to say no. And what I learned was when you say no, people don't lose respect for you. And I was worried that they would. And I'm learning that if I'm open and honest and share the reason why I'm saying no, I continue to garner the respect of the people that are asking for my time and energy. And I think that that's kind of neat the way that works.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, the no. I mean, I clearly understand boundaries and their usefulness, but I wonder if you ever ponder when you say no, what opportunity you might be missing, or is there not just that, but maybe to go one step further. Do you, before you say no, do you like think about how the what's the best way? Do you ponder the efficacy of the situation, or whatever it is you're saying no to, and their alignment with what you're trying to accomplish, like the values or the goals that you have? Or is it just like, I feel the well coming, no, and then you're like, yeah, that feels good? I wonder.
Yeah, so I think part of the reason I used to say yes to almost everything and everyone was that thought that, oh my God, what if this is a great opportunity? What if this could be something that I would not want to miss? And so I would dive in constantly, and to the point at times without regard for my own personal limitations. I mean, not limits, but physiological limitations. Like, I can't keep going at this pace, and I'm, or taking on projects and things, and then being so stressed out because I was past deadline and I wasn't getting stuff done on time, and I felt like I wasn't doing it in my best. And it was like a reliving my college and graduate school life, where I always had more work to do than I could get done, and the stakes felt really high, and I felt like I was letting people down. It was like too much, right? And I've been around long enough to know that the opportunities will come. Like, they come usually when I'm, sitting around paying attention, but not like super trying to find opportunities. They come to me more often than not, which, I mean, has a lot to do, I think, with mindset. So I don't worry so much about missing opportunities. And there are opportunities in everything I am doing. And like you said, to be able to stay focused on the mission, to be able to stay focused on my work. And my role is so much about supporting people. It's important for me to know that I can be there 100% for those people that I'm working with, and not feeling distracted by those other things, those other projects, some of which really don't mean that much to me, but I knew they'd be like a favor to somebody else or be helpful to somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
But when I first read that, the successful leaders, mostly kind of probably business type people and maybe academics, whatever, just had to learn and practice saying no to all the demands for their time and attention, and to really stay almost single-mindedly focused on what mattered. That was just a very powerful realization. And, often we're in situations where we can't do that, where we can't say no to all the demands, or it's hard to say no. But when we can, I think there's value in being, we live in such a distracting time, like everything, we're distracted by everything all the time. So to give yourself the luxury and freedom to actually focus on something and not just keep taking on more and more and more, I think is, it's a better life and a better lifestyle, ultimately, if we can do it.
Yeah.
Todd, from my perspective, to answer your question, yes, I definitely think about the thing and what opportunity cost I might be giving up if I don't do it. But I think as I'm getting older and becoming more in tune with what I think that I need, I say to myself, right now, this is how I'm spending my time and energy. If I were to take this thing on, I would probably have to give up something that I'm doing. And by my best assessment, is taking that new thing on worth giving up something that I'm currently doing? Yeah. And that's kind of the measure that I use.
Interesting. Yeah. It's a good one. Simple to say, harder to do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What you got, Todd?
Is it me?
It's you.
This one's simple too. Are you ready? Give selflessly with no concern of the outcome.
I like that one.
You know, because it kind of goes back to what Bill was saying. Like, why am I doing this for me? Who am I doing this for? Because do I need the spotlight? No, I don't need it. I just need to give.
So for years, Jen and I were trying to conceive, and we came up empty for a long time. And we went pretty far down the road of adoption prior to finding out that Jen was pregnant with Lauren. And when you start the adoption process, one of the kind of tenets of it is, what is your why for adoption? And if your adoption is for your own need, you might want to reconsider. And if your adoption is to provide a better life for another human, you're probably on the right track. And if you're looking to receive appreciation or kudos for helping someone else, you're in it for the wrong reason. And what you just said really reminded me of that.
There you go. Is that 3? Are we on the bonus round? Or are we? Oh, I think Peter has.
Pete's got to go.
My third.
Yeah.
Pete's going to bring us home.
Bring it home, Pete.
This one's more tactical. It's not as deep thinking. It's something that some people may choose to apply to their life or not. But in my learning of nutrition, something that I've learned is that the connection between the belly and the brain has a 20-minute delay. So if you eat a bunch of food, your stomach doesn't relay that message to your brain that you're full until about the 20-minute mark. So if you plan on eating an absolute ton of food, you got to do it in those first 20 minutes, because then your brain realizes you're full and you're in pain. So people often come to me seeking nutrition advice, and people that are looking to lose body fat. And one tactic that I think is really helpful is to keep in mind that 20-minute rule. So what I share with people is 10 minutes before you're going to have your meal, chug down a couple big glasses of water, so that when you go to sit down for your meal, you're already halfway to satiation. And in 10 minutes, you're going to know that you're full and you're going to eat a lot less. The portion size in America is extreme. I'll never forget my first trip to Europe. I sat down to have breakfast in Holland, and they served me my cereal. And this is not exaggeration. The cereal bowl was exactly half of the size of the ashtray that was on the table.
Priorities, Peter, priorities.
The amount of food that we eat is more than we need. And if we can consume less calories, obviously that's one way to lose body fat. But to fill your belly up with water that has no calories 10 minutes before the meal, you will consume less food at the meal.
Plus, most people don't drink enough water anyway. So that solves both.
Water anyway.
Yeah.
So I go through different phases of my training cycle and gaining strength and cutting body fat for different things that I do. And that's one really solid tactical approach to consuming less food is to down a bunch of water 10 minutes before the meal.
Solid.
All right. I want to hear the bonus from each of you.
Oh,
go Bill.
Well, now I've actually just created a new one. So now I have 2. So we're going to this is never going to end.
Bill, welcome to the podcast.
Double bonus.
Honestly, Todd and I could just go on and
never
on. And on. Cutting it is the hardest part. But that just means
say no, Bill. Just say no.
Just means 4 shows from now you're going to be back on and doing it again. Let's roll, baby.
So I'm going to save one of mine because it could be a show. We've actually talked about it. So
I love
that needs a lot more.
Okay.
I'm going to piggyback on your tactical, practical advice and say that one of the most important things you can do in your life is ensure that you get good sleep. It is, in my opinion, at this moment, it is the game changer. It is the most important thing you could possibly do for your mind and body.
And I'm going to piggyback on that and say it's not just the amount of sleep, it's the quality of the sleep. So what you do to land your plane, what you do 2 hours before you go to bed, and your sleep environment, the light that's in your sleep environment, the sound that's in your sleep environment, the temperature of your sleep environment, all these things play into it. And the quality of your sleep is drastically changed by your sleep environment. So controlling your sleep environment as best you can plays a major role in that too, not just the number of hours that you're in bed.
It's kind of amazing to me, the more that science is learning about the importance of sleep and the more I'm learning from them about the importance of sleep, it makes me realize that nowhere in our childhood or in our education or from our parents is anyone saying this is the most, I mean, people say it, but everyone's like, oh, yeah, I know. Sleep's important. Yeah. There's a lot to it. It's not, and it's,
In fact, I would contend just the opposite. We have lived in a culture that values burning the candle at both
Yes.
ends and working so hard and taking on so much and all these things. And I think we're coming around on that to a different mindset. And I'm super psyched to tell you that I just finished a semester, and at the end of every semester, I sit down with every kid and do a one-on-one. It's not an interview. It's just an exit chat. I like to have closure with each student. And when I ask them, what's the single biggest takeaway from this past semester, 70% of my students say, Mr. D, was what you taught us about sleep.
you are the beacon in the fog.
I wish I were, but it's such an important thing. Thank you for sharing that on this show. That's huge.
There's lots of things, like you said. There's tons of things that go into sleep. Like,
yes,
yeah, that could be a whole show.
Yes, we should. Let's talk about sleep.
We had a show about sleep, but
we did.
Yeah,
we should do it again.
Okay,
bonus. I only had one bonus, so I'm going to end it here. But
T bonus.
Yeah, T bonus. Here we go. Test all of the material objects you own for utility and fit in your current reality. If they no longer serve or fit, be willing to let them go.
Oh man, I love that. I've wanted to put a rule in my world, and I just have not been able to follow through on it. Because if I did not wear that piece of clothing in the last 365 days,
she gone
to donate it.
Yeah, it's hard because you always think there's this part, at least in my brain, there's this part like, oh, I'll use that at some point. And what I've realized in the last couple, months is if you haven't used it in X amount of time, chances are you're never going to use it. And if you don't use it, eventually when you die, somebody's have to clean up all of your stuff, and they're going to be like, why do I have so much crap? What are we doing here? So that's the thing. So every time you put your hand on it,
the stress that it causes when you enter that physical space, the stress that it causes to see all those things in a chaotic manner it makes them not worth keeping right there, even if you do need them 20 years from now.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so many rules around it, right? Like, oh, I'm going to share that later, or I'm going to give that to somebody. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of it. Yeah, my wife taught me this one thing the other day, and I've used it all the time now. It's always in the forefront of my mind. Instead of putting it down, put it away. And so now I question this all the time. I'm like, oh, I don't need this. Like, I just put it away, get rid of it. So
my father says, when in doubt, throw it out.
There you go.
So Todd, let me ask you this, just because I'm curious. What's the most useless or random thing that you've kept for a long time? That
I have a box in the attic of my. This is interesting because it's like where worlds collide. My wife places a heavy emphasis on keepsakes, like, and it's not just a ton of crap. It's like things that were meaningful in her life, her Letterman's jacket, or blah 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 blah. And so I don't know if it's in an effort to please her or just because she randomly found some box of old things that I had. She created me a box in the attic of Todd's memories. And I went through Todd's memories and none of them were worth keeping. And I was like, are you serious? And so I was sitting around a campfire when this happened, and I wholesale just almost took the entire box and dumped it on the fire. And she was like, do you know how long I've been saving that stuff for you? And I was like, well, there's the first problem. You're saving it for me because I don't even want it. But then it was just like, it's a really strange thing to think about where people's lives intersect, and what's meaningful to one, sometimes you might like keep all the painting stuff because my wife wanted to paint. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Like, so yeah, you have to be careful because you throw away somebody else's stuff that might cause more toil. But yeah, so that's one I've recently.
As George Collins says, when it's yours, it's stuff. When it's someone else's, it's SHIT.
There you go. Anyways, that's all I got.
Great.
It was a good subject. It was a good topic.
Very good one.
Oh, I love this. Thank you guys so much for coming on. I live for this stuff. These conversations just fuel me, and I'm super grateful for the conversation we had tonight. Thank you for sharing.
It was awesome. Thanks for the invite again. I'm like Dr. feeling Bill. Very regular on this show, so I love it.
Absolutely,
I appreciate you inviting me to
win it. No doubt.
You're even banking future episode fodder.
Oh, I've already. Yeah, we got the file. We're building the file.
There it is.
We sunk the hook, Todd. We sunk the hook.
We'll get it.
Perfect.
Fished it.
Well, if anyone needs to reach us, schoolingstruggle@gmail.com. Give us a shout. Let us know what you need, and I would be psyched to hear from you.
For sure.
With that said, to all the listeners out there, We appreciate your ears. We thank you so very much for your time. We are incredibly grateful for your attention. On behalf of Todd, Dr. Bill Slammin, myself, the School and Struggle Podcast, we are out.
See ya.
Nice.